My name is Asema Koge. I am not in any way a traditionally trained programmer or a heavily experienced one. I have been contracted to work through Dogwood Gaming for years, and today I really want to discuss sort of the unorthodox but interesting aspect of our latest project, Don't Fraud My Heart. It is a dating simulator visual novel that is done completely in Microsoft PowerPoint. I apologize if this sounds like a classroom question, but if I get some raised hands if anyone's familiar with PowerPoint. So you all know how untraditional this is. This project has been going on for a couple months now, and it has been a very interesting thought exercise for me and for our team in sort of exploring the ways that we can use PowerPoint to simulate a game that, to our greatest hope and aspiration, looks very similar to a traditional visual novel or dating simulation game. I'm gonna start off just sort of talking about myself while I play this trailer here, which shows you a couple of different aspects. A very interesting fact about this trailer is that it was also done in Microsoft PowerPoint. So yes, I know how to use PowerPoint. I will try to use it for everything. If you want my resume, it is in Microsoft PowerPoint. So first and foremost, I myself, my name is Asema Koge. I am not at all trained in video game design or development in any traditional sense. I've spent roughly 7 years doing self-taught work in different programs such as Maya and self-taught work with HTML, self-taught work with C++, but ultimately I am a very much a do-it-yourself type of person. This heart of this project that we worked on draws on skills I developed in middle school. So while it's definitely been a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication to what we've done so far, it is ultimately something that should be accessible and easy for anyone to reach into and work with. This actually started off from a joke from the CEO of our company, Dogwood Gaming, one day going up to us and saying, wouldn't it be fun to try to do a game in Microsoft PowerPoint? Or how silly would that be? And my response was, yes, we could do that. Yeah, we could absolutely do that. Microsoft PowerPoint is really interesting as a sort of engine to work with because it has all the basic tools that you would need to make any sort of multimedia piece. You can add animations, you can add in sounds, you can make sure that there are branching paths, that there are, to a certain extent, conditional statements being met and being searched for, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a traditional game engine that really make it function or flourish in the way. So you have to put a lot more love and care into your presentation here. One of the things that is really interesting to look into, and I'm gonna, if you'll give me a second, I'm gonna skip forward a little bit to actually our first game within the PowerPoint here so you can all see sort of the work that goes into this. Yes, I know, it's around 1,300 slides. It is maybe like 11% complete. So by the time we're done with this, we will rival any Call of Duty game, I tell you. You are gonna be so surprised how Microsoft PowerPoint's file size can compete with Call of Duty. AAA games, you better watch out. But as you can see over here, we have what looks like a mishmash of different objects and different images all put onto the slide. But when it comes together, it comes together as much more of an interactive and cohesive piece that you would see in an actual game menu. Starting specifically from this slide here, we have what appears to be a spreadsheet with our game, The focus of this portion of the game is to assess or audit this tax document. You can access suggestions from Tacky, our little riff-off or parody of Clippy from Microsoft 98. If you guys remember that, you know. Any hands for Clippy? Thank you very much. Over here, we have interactive sections with our receipt tab, where the player can actually review the different columns that you're going to be working with, close them up, and then review them again. And then you may start to make your guesses on which section of the actual game is the falsified piece of information or the falsified price point from this audit sheet. And depending on your guess, you'll get a response, you'll get a reaction, you'll see that you're losing one of your 6 options to get the game correct, and you'll have an interaction from our main character of this portion, Sepia-chan, who is wonderfully written by another member of our staff. To sort of expand on what's going on here, we can open up the object pane, which you can see a lovely selection of different objects that have been added here. And if you give me 1 second, the animation pane, where you can see what sort of gone into making this game work, to make sure that basic functions like you clicking through the PowerPoint won't just trigger slide translation, but will slide transition, but will allow you to actually remain within the game and force you to sort of pick a logical option. There are basically cancellation boxes that are made overlaying the entire slide, boxes that do not allow you to click on any object until a certain time is met. It's labeled the cover screen. All of the objects within this slide have a label that might not make sense to you at first, but as I work through the methodology, I'm labeling and trying to understand where the hitboxes are for certain answers. The correct answer hitbox that allows a trigger for the next dialogue option to go through and the hyperlink to the next slide. It's sort of working with a large layer of different objects that you all have to key up in order to make the appearance that this is your traditional game system. PowerPoint, in a, for lack of a better word, less intellectual matter, doesn't really know how to call up things in front of each other, but it knows how to trigger certain animations. So underneath all the normal, underneath all the normal animations that start at the beginning of the slide, we have triggers for when the first hitbox is pulled. The cover sheet that is preventing you all from interacting with the slide will then appear. Then you'll have the hitbox that prevents you from interacting with things appear. You'll have the hitbox for the first wrong answer being hit that will trigger the dialogue option for Sepia-chan making her first statement, sort of berating you for not properly doing the game. That will disappear to make sure that you can continue for the successive second, third, fourth, fifth wrong answers to chain up that dialogue together. All of this is to make it seem like it flows together in that proper way, but you're always planning ahead of time. What will the player not be able to interact with? How will you limit their actions? And so, in a sense, it becomes a thought exercise on sort of how to curate their experience. Curation is probably the best word I can describe for most of this project, where it comes to knowing what the user or the player can interact with and making sure you're guiding them along the path that you want. This is for not only this first game, for every successive game that we iterate on, and it sort of allows me, as I'm experiencing this and working through with PowerPoint, to have a better understanding not only of the tools that I have access to, but also of the way in which, as a game designer, the sort of underlying principles I want when directing a player through a game. The next thing I want to talk about is sort of the branching method or the branching pathways that are made within this PowerPoint. And I think the best example can be found a little bit earlier on in this slide, where you're given two options in response to whether you will hold the door open for our main character, this first slide, Sepia-chan, or not. Again, those of you who are familiar with PowerPoint might be familiar with hyperlinking your slides, or to make for lack of a better term, a quick change of your slide to a different section. That is very similar to what you do with branching pathways. Microsoft PowerPoint does not hold any variables for you. It doesn't keep track of things in sort of that traditional sense. So you have to plan ahead to decide how you're going to have your player respond, and how you're going to have your characters respond to that player's responses. Over here on this slide, when it pops up, you are given the option of these two links. And when going to either that link, that's going to take you to a whole different section of the PowerPoint. As we were working through development of this, we found that the best way really to try to give that same visual novel experience of your player having choice and having decision is doing this. But at the end of the day, it sort of gets complicated with how many iterations of choice you allow the player to have, because for every branch that you create, you have to then make in the successive slides a list of every single option that that player will have. So if I wanted them to have 6 different various choices for what they're doing, I have to have 6 times my PowerPoint right after that in order to enable that. So it's a lot of small branching that we're doing, and then we're hyperlinking back into the main part of the PowerPoint to sort of conserve on how much work and how much file space this PowerPoint is, because I definitely don't want to go past 100 gigabytes on a PowerPoint. Not very fun. As we see over here, we started in around slide 100, and this choice hyperlinks us all the way to a later portion I've labeled within the PowerPoint option B for day 1, that then goes successively through all the way to around slide 1300. When it gets close to that, when it gets close to here, we'll open up another hyperlink that will then link us all the way back. A little bit finicky, hold on. That will then link us all the way back to slide 112. So we're making a branching pathway that leads back into itself, but gives the player a little bit of that experience. We're not necessarily having a cascading set of decisions within the PowerPoint, where your decision from day 1 will affect all the way to day 6, the usual time interval we're having for multiple characters within our game. But we are trying to get you for within 1 day or 2 days to have sort of an experience like you not talking to this one character, or you not interacting with them in a certain way does have consequences on how you interact with them further along in the PowerPoint, and just change that up a little bit. To the best of my knowledge, this is as close as I can get to really a functional set of branching decisions with the PowerPoint. But one of the great things about this, and about being self-taught with anything, not only in PowerPoint or video game design, but in general in life, is that there's always different ways to learn and iterate. Just yesterday, we had changes that are completely different from the build that we are showing of this game today here at MAGFest. So it's always a learning process, and it's an exceptionally fulfilling one at that. The third aspect that I think I'm most proud of here comes to the actual animations that occur within the PowerPoint. Like I said, PowerPoint is a wholly encompassing system. It allows you to do a lot of fun and really interesting things with the way that you can move different items and objects within the PowerPoint. I'm just going to slide down here to try to give you an example. A really good one starts over here with our introduction for our character Tacky. See, I'm already getting them two mixed up. That's how I know I did a good job of paying homage. I'm confused myself. So if we start over here, you can see from the transition of Clippy coming across to him doing your sort of little intro here. He's animated, he's fun, he's using different sort of objects and items within the game to give you an understanding of the steps which you're going through to proceed to the PowerPoint. All of that is done not with animated GIFs or separate objects, but taking an object or an image that's drawn by our fantastic artist, David Loebman, who you can actually find in the Artist Alley today. Sorry for the plug. But with the animations that you are given access to within Microsoft PowerPoint. Some slides are a little bit this is average size amount of animations that I have on the slide when it comes to the actual transition of the objects within the slide, objects appearing, or the changing of the dialog boxes to provide that sort of appearance of cue cards shifting as you're going through the slide. All of it is done in a certain way to make you feel like this is not a PowerPoint. And the two parts that really intersect with that are making sure that the movements are fluid as possible and as sort of creative as possible, but also making sure that the art looks like something that you wouldn't see normally in a PowerPoint. You can see the sort of multiple layers of animations that go through here again, all queued up with different triggers as well as just the start of the slide to give the appearance that this is an interactive and sort of untraditional PowerPoint experience. Starting up from this slide here, not only do you have your normal text animation, but then you can continue to interact with the tabs on the side here as well, similar to how you would normally act with them in the main game. This sort of a fake me out that we're trying to do is to really push the limits of what can be expressed with PowerPoint and how this can be used as a way for people to sort of get into the spirit, if not the actual practical method of creation when it comes to video game design. I very much am proud of what we've worked with here. My sort of professional background comes with a lot of work, volunteering and professionally with children, with education, with helping other people to learn and grow. And so my biggest hope is that this project and sort of the work with PowerPoint becomes a way for people to start up or to really expand their understanding of video game design, of programming, and of artistic expression. A lot of the skills that I used here are, like I said, things I first started with in middle school, and I definitely am excited to see how much further we can push this project as it continues, and hope to see in the future other people trying to push PowerPoint, Excel, Word, any other program. Let's see if we can get calculators to start running crazier things than before. But yeah, that is absolutely the main focus of this project and sort of what I'm working with here. To have a sort of little different perspective of this, actually, if I could have Sam Martino, our CEO of Dogwood Gaming, if you could stand up for a second for me. Yes, please give him a round of applause. Yes.
Knowing that a PowerPoint game can get into MAGFest, I think is like, you really can make a game out of anything. But thank you for saying.
Unfortunately, he is the only one from our team here, but included with Sam are many more people from the Dogwood Gaming staff that, if not with direct involvement in the writing and the art of this, within proofreading, editing, advisement, criticism, and sort of moral support at all. this is not the easiest thing to do, but it's definitely one of the most accessible ways I can think of to enter into programming and enter into this sort of field. Again, I apologize if this sounds like a sort of classroom type of experience, but I do want to ask for raised hands at all, please, if anyone has any questions on sort of what I've gone over before, or any sort of criticisms or complaints. That is something I absolutely love, someone telling me what they think is wrong or what they think they are annoyed by, because criticism just helps you grow. No, please do stand. I have poor eyesight and even poor visual. Yes, oh, yes, over here in the. So it's a little bit finicky. One of the things is that currently the game runs perfectly normal, average expected PowerPoint file. I think it's what, yeah, 180 megs as normal, but especially with this larger file size, one of the things we try to do, especially for getting it onto Steam, is to convert into a .exe, and that really adds on the file space. I believe the last iteration I tried converting got up to like 4 gigabytes, and that's something that's a little bit crazy for a PowerPoint. So we're sort of exploring more routes to convert this. Again, this is maybe like 12% of the game, if even that. When the game is fully done, I would not be surprised if we're getting close to around 10,000 slides, if not more than that. So depending on how we try to process this, how we try to put this out, the file size can vary. I'm also sort of worried because sometimes when I work with this, PowerPoint seems to slow down. And I don't know if that's because I've been downloading too many viruses or because the PowerPoint itself wasn't expecting to handle around like 100 or tens of hundreds of slides all at once. So we'll continue to try to push this as long as possible, but if I have to send a complaint to Microsoft about not being able to run a 100,000 PowerPoint, please do support me in this endeavor. Any other questions, comments, or complaints? Oh, yes, over here, please. Yes.
So you talked about converting to .exe.
Mhm.
I know this might be like a loaded question, and I know a lot to answer, but is there a long process to doing that, or is it like a converter?
Well, it's a converter, really. The choices in converters are pretty limited, and a lot of them come with like annual licenses, and especially if I'm not sure how far I can push this, committing to that $400 license for the PowerPoint converter is a bit tricky. So we're trying to see how far we can push with how little we need to put into it to mess around with that. But as this project's sort of timeline sort of expands and continually gets iterated on, it's something that seems more feasible going forward. I believe our initial thought was, yeah, we could have this game finished by December. It'll be great. And as you can see, that did not occur. Yes, please watch out for us during tax season. Okay, you can. Yes, question in the back. I'd like to say it started as a dream. This project started, I believe it's valid to say it started around maybe March? June, really? Okay. Okay, I know that we brought a demo of this game to Otakon, but my memory is really bad, so Otakon could have been during the summer, fall, winter, or next year. Whichever one it was around then that we first really had a functioning build of it, and shortly before that, we started working with the game. I believe, yes, the mouse ears.
Do you have a account you can go to for accurate account representation, or who's your basis for your info on that?
Well, that is actually a great question. I think it's okay to state that we've had some discussions with a diverse group of people. We've had sort of input might be a little bit generous, but definitely polite encouragement from H&R Block on our project. But we've had perspectives from our CEO, Sam, doing taxes for Dogwood itself. I have a bit of a background within my church when it comes to doing some of the accounting, so that was a little bit to draw from that perspective as well. But it was a lot of opinions and input from our whole staff. And again, that's part of what I draw from and really do love, is that we have several people on our staff that do taxes. Well, not their own tax, but they legally do their taxes like everyone in here should. That's what I'm trying to say. And so there's a lot of different perspective on what a business, an individual, what on different companies or career paths might be doing, and that sort of input on the different sections here. But we also do a little bit of field work. I was sent out to a farm to research how much cows cost, and that was a lovely experience, and I think I learned a lot from that.
Yeah, if you're trying to find somebody that doesn't use the fax machine anymore,
Yes, so if any of you know how to use a fax machine, please meet me after the meeting. Also, this is very serious, if any of you know where to get a Laserdisc player, we've been looking for almost 2 years now, we really could use it. Any other questions? Oh, yes, over here, close to me in a minute. I'll get all the way back there, don't worry.
Alright, so if there is like a number one feature that you could get implemented into PowerPoint like tomorrow to make your life as a developer this easier, what do you think it would be?
I want PowerPoint to be able to hold variables, to be able to remember what has been done and allow it to go through. And I had a iteration, I have a problem where people ask me about this game and I'll come up with solutions to it within my discussion of complaining about how there's no solution to it. Just 5 minutes ago we were talking about anyone familiar with how like you make a Jeopardy game within PowerPoint and how once a hyperlink is clicked it will be shaded in and you'll have that even when you return back to that slide. Making a actual sort of hitbox that isn't transparent but will actually appear or disappear over covering those different hyperlinks and then returning to that slide is one way to sort of force PowerPoint to remember things. But it's a bit crude, similar to like forcing a toddler to use an abacus to help you with your accounting. I may or may not know about that from experience. Let me see, was there any other, I know all the way in the back here, sir. I'm so sorry, I'm just gonna have you stand up and I'm gonna tell you no. Yes, you, absolutely, it was you.
I was curious, in this project, we were using any sort of like scripting or extensions for PowerPoint.
No, actually. This was completely in, would it be appropriate to say PowerPoint vanilla? There's actually been a little bit of a confusion. I haven't pulled out this laptop in around 6 months, and it has a slightly older version of PowerPoint than the one I'm using on my desktop at home. So there was even some confusion on what limitations and which vanilla version of PowerPoint I had access to. So, but yes, this was all done without any scripting. I did look into a little bit of that, which was an incredible learning process in itself, but it also came down to how much of this is going to be retained when I try to convert it into a .exe, how much of this will be retained as I try to sort of push it in different methods and different ways for the person experiencing the PowerPoint transition, and it sort of seemed like it didn't work. But absolutely, if you have ideas, please grab me after here and we can powwow, because I am more than willing to take any suggestions, criticisms, bullying from you, absolutely. If you want to see me outside of the parking lot, okay? Oh, yes, please stand, yes, absolutely, yes.
So I have 2 questions. The first one is, what did you use any sort of source control? It's not that hard for PowerPoint.
I'm sorry, can you say that again, please?
Yeah, did you use any sort of source control, and was there any difficulties with it being PowerPoint rather than like, compile code or anything? And then second question is, how do you organize yourself and like all the work that you're doing on this?
Okay.
How do you keep track of everything in like the project and time?
Okay, to the first one, I'll have to respond with a question of my own. Could you explain what you meant by source control?
Like, are you able to use like GitHub or like SharePoint or anything like that to do like versions, or is it just
No, I have not explored any of that. If you want to join your gentlemanly friend over there in the line, just meet me in the parking lot. Absolutely. No, I'm quite serious. Anyone, please feel free to pull me aside and please expand my knowledge. I think the greatest way anyone can learn is by having someone else bully them into learning. But yes, please.
Developing it, so there isn't really much a need. It's like when I look at this and I try to understand how he does this PowerPoint magic, it's lost to me because he organizes it in a way that he understands.
And to add on to that and to answer your second question, sometimes I also organize it in a way that I don't understand myself. My workflow is definitely a little bit sporadic. This is not my primary job, so this is definitely something I do on the side. I'll sometimes sit down, try to order the animations, the triggers for something, and then not see it for a week or two and come back and say, what in the world was I thinking? And just have to sort of break down what I went by. Actually, when I first began this project, this selection pane item here that allows me to list the different objects, rename them, and sort of change the order at which they're in, where the top one that you see in this pane is the top layer of the PowerPoint. That's something I didn't learn until months in. So every time I would put an object, if I wanted to have a sort of clear box that was limiting something, I did that knowing I may never see that object under it again. Ever. So it was definitely an interesting thing. But the really interesting part about it is when people like our unnamed CEO will come up and say, I really wish you would change this thing that's under 12 different objects and layers, and then I have to figure out how I did this and therefore tweak that for my unnamed CEO, who shall not be named. But in all seriousness, organizing and making sure that you have a clear workflow, especially as clear as I got it to be right now, is really important for making any sort of iterations and changes within this. Understanding what you're doing, how to get to the next step is absolutely important, and I think for almost any job, unless you're just trying to make a mess, you need to know how you did it in your methodology and how to continue on from that. Well, yes.
So when it comes to the panes for animation objects, compared to other engines you've worked with, how convenient do you find it to go back and modify specific, chunks of a given slide?
Not convenient at all. I can give you a really great example. There are certain things that I call PowerPoint's unknowns because they don't make sense to me. And that is over here, I have 3 different animations. They are all triggered to happen with previous, which in this case, since there's nothing previous to that, they'll all happen at the beginning of the slide. However, a funny thing happens where sometimes if I make this item here, the first in that set of orders, the PowerPoint will not continue at all and will just stall out, even though all 3 of those items are queued in to happen at the same time at previous. So I like to believe that there's a secret middle person within PowerPoint that is simply trying to make my life more difficult. But yeah, that's the sort of explorative process with PowerPoint. To the best of my knowledge, I've seen many people make branching sort of story type games or activities within PowerPoint, but not as much as an interactive game like this. And if anyone finds one, please let me know so I can ask for help. But I think that's why your normal queue on Reddit or within Microsoft's help answers, asking, why isn't my PowerPoint allowing me to continue the next button for the game while triggering the different hitboxes I've set up for in my animation? Doesn't get any responses from, yeah. Any other, oh, I'm sorry.
Matt, so in terms of future presentations, were you only thinking about Steam, or have you ever considered trying to get into, maybe another browser?
I absolutely want to get this on as many mediums as possible, as many storefronts as possible, and when it's fully completed, possibly even just getting it out to the public. I think if my concern is someone will take this game and reverse engineer the mess that I've made in here, then I want to meet that person and give them a hug because they went through something horrible. Horrible. I could tell you that. But like I said before, I have a background working with children working with other people who pursue education, encouraging other people to learn and grow through multiple different skills and paths in life, and learning different skills myself. So I absolutely promote getting this out to anyone who can get their hands on it and who does want to explore this. I am absolutely still learning throughout this entire process, and so I think more people sort of getting this game just sort of helps it, and I can't wait for the person who makes the better version of this game in a couple years, if not decades or centuries. Hope.
Actually works natively on mobile, if you can believe it. Like if you have the PowerPoint app from Microsoft, you can just load the slides and it runs natively. Touch screen support, everything.
Yes, I will take your question next, but just I want to reiterate on the amazing Microsoft PowerPoint application for your phone, the premier video game engine. You may also run Microsoft PowerPoint video game applications through your phone and computer. Microsoft, if you would like to fund me, please reach me. Yes, please.
So, talking about actually loading the game in PowerPoint, you said it would be offered as an executable on Steam, but would you also offer it as just a PowerPoint file?
It's something that we're still in the works through how exactly to distribute it, but yes, currently that is, I believe we have a functioning demo right now, not the most up-to-date version of it up on our website, but run as a PowerPoint that you can download straight from that. I believe it's a read-only right now, if I'm.
At our booth is running PowerPoint slides on the DXC. It's more so it's just like we don't want people to have an office subscription to play. You know, we can't put that as a requirement on Steam. But it's probably something like if you know, we want people to learn how to do this, so we'll probably put on our website the actual slides.
Just to chill for a little second more, Microsoft also has a lot of online applications for the use of PowerPoint itself, and I believe, at least prevalent in MCPS, access to Microsoft PowerPoint or Microsoft's full suite is pretty common, especially with the recent COVID scenario and children being at schools. So more people have their hands on Microsoft PowerPoint than I would say ever before, and it's definitely more accessible. If not, if you'd like to budget out an hour at your local library for the next 12 or so years, you could probably also do the same thing that I've done so far. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Oh, yes.
So in PowerPoint, obviously, you can save your point by just saving and closing it, but then the export, is there any form of saving and loading?
Well, actually, I want to touch base a little bit on that. If I'm understanding what you're saying, saving from the last point you were within the game and continuing there from PowerPoint is what you meant, correct? So the way that PowerPoint works, because the game, for all intents and purposes, is a slide presentation, you cannot save necessarily from that experience as much as you could just know what slide you left off on and trigger that set. Now, going into that, similar to how you would say make a table of contents with several hyperlinks set to that, and then having those hyperlinks triggered to be released depending on what stage of the PowerPoint you've gone to, you could in some way make a sort of pseudo save state, but it's more along the lines of you just know and you have access to those save points, and none of that would be retained within iterations. The current converter we've used for .exe is iSpring, which comes with its own set of difficulties, but it has a bit of a table of contents similar to PowerPoint's sort of slide preview tab that you can see over here on the left that allows you to select which slide you've been on. And so in a similar way where if you just know what slide you've been on, you can go there, but we haven't explored or experimented with a diverse set of different .exe converters and seeing what sort of products or results will come out with that. So we're definitely still in the exploration stage of that. If you want to meet the rest of them in the parking lot, we can have a full-on powwow, kumbaya, and everything. I just want to reemphasize this is not at all a violent confrontation. We're all going to sit down, hold hands, and discuss things civilly. But if you want to meet outside in the parking lot and do that, please feel free to.
Sorry, just like I've been thinking about too, is I'm not sure how we're gonna properly save. You know, I think back to like, you know, if you guys remember the early PlayStation 1 days where you had to input codes to get to the levels that you
Absolutely, it could be. And there's probably someone who's done some sort of PowerPoint project in a completely different direction that might even have a solution to this. It's the wonderful thing about doing something you have no idea how it works, you get to learn. Anyone? Oh, yes.
Question. So I know with like certain program, like certain pieces of software, if you create something within the software, like I know there's sometimes like legal discrepancies with that. Like for example, like I work with a program called Open Live, it's like a music audio station. They have an educational license that you can get. That's like I guess it's like for like people who are like it's cheaper for like people who are trying to learn in school with it. The thing is that when you use that license, you're not allowed to release anything like commercially with that program. I didn't know if there's any certain similar situations with PowerPoint where like Microsoft may try to intervene if you were to release something like this.
Yes. The short answer is I am aware of similar sort of concerns. We have not fully explored sort of the ramifications of that. On the most positive note I can think of, we have not fully published anything yet or put a monetary price on anything, which sort of would be my greatest assumption for triggering some sort of legal action. But if Microsoft would like to sit down and have a discussion with me at any point in time, I'm absolutely willing to. I will come and meet you guys, potluck style, whatever.
It's a pretty big gray area, because they don't address, like, no one who's done this before, no one's really using it, but it's also, we're doing something to how like Doki Literature Club did, where the game is free, and then we have, like, the artist has merchandise and stuff separately. So I think, like, this is like that Microsoft hasn't written anything to, like, cover this, but we're also doing everything to make sure we're not, like, profiting off of how.
Were there any other questions, comments, or, oh, yes, the person who's in the blinding light. Yes. Absolutely, please.
So let's say your hard drive explodes, what happens to the whole project if it's on there?
That's a very good question. So I actually learned about this. If any of you are familiar with a very problematic website called Mega Upload that was used for a lot of people to illegally upload movies and such, I spent a lot of time in middle school making around a 2,000 slide animation within PowerPoint that, because the file got so big that I couldn't hold it on my rinky-dink flash drive or even my email back to myself anymore, I put on Mega Upload, and eventually one day when it was shut down, I lost access to that file completely. So I've been very careful for making hard copy iterations on a flash drive within my OneDrive, which is also Microsoft product as well, and and making sure to have hard copies sent out through our Discord or through my Google Drive as well, just to make sure on as many platforms as possible I have hard copies of this. But if all of those are to fail, then Sam, we're out of luck.
Yeah. We're all didn't want this game to happen if everything breaks.
Yes. Oh, please continue. Oh, absolutely. And if any of you all feel so inclined to work with this project, you can talk with Sam, and we have people from all the way from France to halfway across the world who we interact with and work with on a daily basis. I would love for help. Please. Help. Yes.
So I noticed the PowerPoint presentation. How does exactly, I know you make cue audio triggers in it too, like audio.
Oh, yes, it has a full soundtrack.
So there is a soundtrack.
Yes.
Yes.
I was wondering that, because I was like, how exactly does that like incorporate into the slides? Like, does it like change audio each time you go into the slide?
There's an interesting thing that comes in. Actually, let me get back to the start of these slides. Something that just a couple days ago, Sam and a couple other members were questioning me about is how you can continue to have audio played through the PowerPoint. And the interesting fact is that PowerPoint in itself actually gives you a lot of audio editing tools. Hold on one second. You can see the sound file here from uploading the sound, but if you go to the playback menu here, I can actually take a sound clip that I have in my documents, upload it, trim it to the size that I want, for what this sound file is going to be. And then after that, I can choose which basic volume from here I want to use, or I can just completely change the volume from like muted to non-playing at all over here as well. And then further along within the animations pane, I can choose for this to begin right at the beginning of the sound, whether, or if I have the same iteration of the sound in multiple places, I can have it pick up from the last point that that sound was on, and then I'm basically counting out how many of the slides I want this sound to continue to play through, and then setting it to continue through these 65 slides. So if I know this scene is the next 40 slides, I'm gonna have it set for those 40 slides. When it fades to black at 41, the sound cuts out, and then at the next slide, 42, I can have another sound file placed in, cut to exactly the same sound I want, or the same size, or how loud it is, and then set to continue on throughout how many slides I need it to continue through again. And that's all done just with PowerPoint's native tools. In our first iterations of it, because we didn't know what sounds we wanted to use, for every click of the next button, I, through PowerPoint again, recorded my own tongue clicking, and then had that set to be that. Eventually we found a nice typewriter sound that will play through every click, but that's sort of the extent. If you wanted full voice acting within this, you could natively do it within PowerPoint, which I think is like really incredible. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
You mentioned converters having limitations on like what they'll actually carry over into the exe file.
Absolutely.
What limitations have you found across however many converters have been tried?
The biggest limitation I found currently is that sound queuing, the exact way we just talked about before, does not properly happen when you set it up in the converter. Like the converter will basically take the end of the slide to be a end stopping point. And once all animations are finished, it will pause there, which means if I set any sound to play, instead of the sound continuing to play through until the player hits the next button to continue the slide, the sound is instead going to just stop. And so it's like if anytime you're playing any game, you just had this weird pause as the game quietly waited for you to do something. So it just completely ruined the vibe of the game. But something else I brought up with iSpring that we currently are working with is that they have an entire pane for you to go through all the different slides on your left-hand side. And that's something that I haven't really found how to get rid of with the converter, which is great for, as we said before, if we want to get to a certain save point. But if you want to make sure a player doesn't have access to a certain point of the game, or only has access to that after they've hit a certain trigger and done some certain actions, then you can't really control that if they always have view of it, as well as if they always have view of sort of what actions or animations might be coming up next to spoil them. PowerPoint in itself has something called, it's like a slideshow setting over here. Let me just make sure. It should be, hold on. Monitor, no, setup slide. There's a setting within PowerPoint to essentially make it where you can't click anything at all except for the triggers within the slide to initiate transitions. That works well if you have like a kiosk mode is what it's called. It's essentially, it works well if you don't want someone to be able to interact with it, but just to be a continuously flipping image. And that type of limitation that you can't really do with the converters, even if I've already set it up as that. But we've only really worked with one, and we're continually exploring what other options we have. As I believe Angelo, our wonderful Dogwood programmer, is also working with finding a better way to convert the PowerPoint into a .exe for us. But please join the line outside in the parking lot if you have more solutions for me. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Or complaints, please. You guys have been so lovely, and I have not heard one complaint yet, and I'm a little bit upset. Yes. That is a lovely question, because Microsoft Office is a lovely program and suite, but they do not play well with others, in the sense that you will have a functioning PowerPoint when we've always tried transitioning over to Google Slides, but we don't necessarily have the same functioning game. And while I have a Google Drive and I'm very fond of my overlord Google, they don't have the same animation suite or options in Google Slides. So that was one of the sort of splitting points, where in some ways Google Slides is way more accessible. You don't have to purchase anything to use Google Slides, but I can't necessarily do all the different things that I can do in Microsoft PowerPoint. But if you want to make the competing game in Google Slides, by all means, go ahead. I will cheer you on every day. But yes, that is sort of our big competitor, Google Slides, has sort of failed us in that sense. But I don't think I can think of any third party that would even be close to either of the two in that functionality. Any other questions, comments? Oh, yes.
Has there been much mind to like optimizing the picture files that you're pulling from for these, the audio files, to make sure that the document, where it's becoming like a 4 gigabyte exe, it's not, you know, an 11 gigabyte exe at this level of progress?
That's absolutely a good question. We've definitely had discussions about it, but sort of at the 11% mark, we're not really sure how large it will get and sort of how far into this we need to be worrying about optimizing these files and making sure that they are sort of as lean as possible when we convert them or put them in. While, like I said, you could completely voice act this game within PowerPoint, it probably wouldn't give you the exact file format or size that you'd want. You'd probably want to do that from another system and then try to really get that as lean as possible. I also think one of the methods I use in order to cue in sounds by just going to whatever slide is the last point I want this in and placing that there means that for a good portion of this, I have 7 or 8 iterations of the same sound file being placed into this. So it's 7 times what you would normally in another system just have a file that you're queued to play at a certain time. I'm actually importing this same file 7 more times. So that's definitely weighing it down in a way that it doesn't need to be. But we're still trying to figure out the sort of efficiency of everything and how to implement it before we can even sort of cut that down further. But yes, we are absolutely looking into that. Oh, yes.
Do you have like an overarching story plan, or so far is it just like slice of life with different characters?
So the story is actually planned out. Multiple writers, editors, including our CEO, Sam, Tyler, who's here with us this week on staff, Dave, a couple other people have been writing and editing what we have so far. We have stories for, I think it's valid to say, at least 5 different female sort of protagonists that you're going through this with, the dating simulation with. Each of them has a set of 6 days that you will interact with them with different games, and there's a prolonged story that's continuing through with each of them. Some of them will make cameos in each other's sort of chapter, I think would be a proper term of their game. Written through, I think we have around nearly 2 of the girls' entire 6-day processes done so far, and we are continually reiterating, sort of refining and editing what we have planned for each of them. But yeah, there's a planned structure. I'm sort of the tail end of sort of stitching everything together.
I can't remember if you mentioned it in the beginning, sorry. It's a dating sim about doing tax. You play as a tax officer. So all the different romance options are all based on different offices. But they're all meant to be like you're playing through your career in the tax office, and it's based on which romance path you go down. With the secret ending where you get sent to prison for tax fraud.
I just want to be clear. When you tell everyone about the secret ending, it's not secret anymore.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
Do you have like a budget or like, do you know how much you spent on creating this project?
0.
0?
Yeah, this has been done in all in free time with mostly free, if not already owned software. My already owned copy of Microsoft PowerPoint on this laptop is 2016, on my desktop is 2018. We've been using free, at least on my end, I've been using free sort of art editing for like small minor tweaks that we've had to do to some of the art assets. David Lobin, our artist, which you can find again in Artist Alley, I believe it's section H, what was it? You can find him in there. I'll point him out. But he has been wonderful enough to really, in his free time, been providing the art assets for this project, as well as been working with us back and forth on sort of reiterating their designs. But yeah, this has not at all been, to the best of my knowledge, monetized. Or if so, then we need to talk later. Yes, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Oh, I'm sorry, was that a raised hand? Okay, I apologize. So I really do want to reiterate again that this is at all not a complete project and not something that is sort of finalized or as refined as we would like it to be. We really hope this is a starting off point. While I said it in jest, please do feel free to make competing projects in different genres and different styles for different purposes. I would love to be able to go on to the help hotline for Microsoft and see that someone else has tried to use hitboxes for the objects within PowerPoint. But the more we sort of push this medium or this method of art in an unconventional way, the more creative and the more opportunities we'll get, or the closer we'll get to Microsoft shutting us down. But either way, it'll be really fun and interesting. This whole process has been amazing. You all being here at this panel with me has been sort of, you guys also are now part of this process, and I really appreciate that. And I'm going to take all these ideas you shared with me and use them. Yes?
I don't know if I missed this earlier. I noticed that you had some animations for the assets that you have. Is it possible you think that PowerPoint could be able to play video files like APIs?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's similar to how you import sound. You can import videos in there. There's a couple different ways. Based on if your device you're playing it on has an internet connection, you can link directly to a YouTube page, splice that in there. If you have the video file itself, you can splice that video file into the PowerPoint. How I'm worried about like having multiple sound files and that clogging it up, when we start putting in multiple videos, that's gonna be, ooh, yeah, Call of Duty will definitely be able to, we'll be able to compete with that at that point. But yes, it's absolutely able to do that. Part of what I've really been trying to push here, and the reason why I did a lot of animation within PowerPoint, is trying to push as much of the in-house resources and tools of PowerPoint as far as possible with what I can make with this. But yeah, videos, putting fully animated, if we were to get a budget, putting fully animated cutscenes in here would be really amazing. If we were to get a really big budget, fully animating cutscenes in PowerPoint could be the next project. That would be as amazing as well. But yes, absolutely. You'd be surprised what PowerPoint is pushing. I think this will have to be the last one before I get kicked out. Yes.
I guess this is a good follow-up then. Can you force slides to automatically move to the next slide based on the timer?
Yes, in the transition tab here, you have multiple different choices. One is I have a intermediate tab in between each transition. That's just a blank one that will force it to go to the next slide. So if I ever have to hyperlink back, instead of an issue that runs with the PowerPoint, sometimes it will already have the effects placed in there because it's timed to occur with the previous slide. Having that blank slide means that the animations are reset for it to go in between. But some of the transitions, especially if I want to have it fully animated or fading to black, instead of putting it to be transitioning once I click next for a hyperlink to the next slide, I will have it just timed out. And with that, I think that is all the time I allowed to have. If you'd like to meet me in the after discussion in the parking lot, please let me know. I am again with Dogwood Gaming. My name is Asema Koga. Please, thank you all very much for being here. I really appreciate it, and you've helped me a lot in our process and journey. Thank you.